right, good morning. Thank you for coming. We'll call this Subcommittee Appropriations to order. Y'all are welcome. Welcome. You got me, looks like, so I feel honored. Thank you. I'm sure we'll have a few other members. So we are going to start with corrections, and I see the commissioners here. Welcome. So, Commissioner, I'm going to turn it over to you. I will say, in the interest of time, Department of Public Safety is set for 9:30. So, okay. Is that? Can you turn that?
Okay. Thank you, sir. We would like to begin with a 3-minute video, just kind of summarizing some of the things we are, and particularly the reentry programs and so forth, which we're real proud of. So if we would start with that.
Sure.
We know that's fan, we know that's cool, we know that's heat, right? This is our heat relay. We're gonna go here. And this is our fan to the fan relay. That takes care of that unit. So if we call for cooling or heating, it's going to operate that unit.
But the only way that we can have a charging system is we cannot produce DC current, we can only produce AC current, right?
I let the guys know that they don't have to be who they were yesterday. In other words, they can change. These guys here can come in and not only learn a skill, but they can also learn things that when they go back out on the street, they don't have to go back to do what they used to do. They don't have to go back to the drugs. They don't have to go back to the streets. They can actually go somewhere and be gainfully employed.
And Mr. Robbie's very good on points that you ask questions, he'll explain them to you, break them down for you.
Make sure to watch your hands.
Our primary objective is to offer our students an opportunity to develop some skills so that they can get a job when they get out. And one of the key components to doing that is having a nationally recognized credential. For the automobiles, we have ASC certification, which is in diesel mechanics, auto mechanics, collision repair. All the construction trades use the NCCER credential. We'll be offering Serve Safe for culinary arts, Ornamental and Turf, which is out of Mississippi State, and in EETC, which is Equipment, Engine, and Training Council.
Finding a good job after incarceration. That's the mission of another program launched by the Mississippi Department of Corrections now. Tomorrow, Commissioner Burl Cain and staff will officially unveil this mobile welding training center that can be used at all state correctional facilities. It's a 53-foot-long 18-wheeler that was once a moving van and now transformed into a classroom. Now, it houses 8 high-tech welding simulators to train inmates for careers in welding.
We're going to focus on the ones who are getting out now within the next 6 months and next year as fast as we can, because we can learn this skill. Some people can in 6 or 8 months.
Okay.
She can learn to weld. She can work
You know, so I never had any technical expertise, and just a GED, and so I basically had no opportunity to grow.
And last but not least, Mr. William Davis, or Truck is what we like to call him. All right, Truck. Thanks, sir. Working on the engine kind of helps me. I can take the old broke down engine and I can put it back together again. Well, that's what we're doing with this program. We're taking a whole bunch of men that lives are broken up and we're putting it back together again. So my biggest thing is I like to teach you guys hope.
Okay, as that ended with recruiting, that takes me to our major issue we
Can I
have
give
with
you my
our...
hot take? Can I give you my hot take?
Yes.
I was gonna say, that's a recruiting video, which I've never seen come out of Department of Correction. That's a good thing, by the way. That's what I'm saying. I thought I was watching the economic development video or something.
Well, thank you so much. I wanted to show you that because I wanted the committee to understand that we are working really hard to hire people. These are vans that we send out a weekend to Walmart parking lots and other places throughout the state to try to recruit. And did recruit over 500, did keep over 200, lost 300. But the point was we weren't paying the overtime, and we fixed that. So today, I want to really focus on our major issue. Here's where we are. We are turning the curve with this department. We have Walnut Grove open. We have the main gang leaders and the thugs. There's 15 of them in there. We're removing those from the population that are causing the chaos and extortion, and so forth. Walnut Grove is going to work for us. We're on the brink of spinning it around on reentry. You saw these are live, real programs, not just words that we come over here and say, oh, we're doing reentry. No, we're really doing it. Everything we say, we're really doing it. But this is the year that we have to have the funding to make the giant step to turn this department around. Now, what's going to happen when we turn it around, and it'll start happening in the next 2 years, we will reduce the recidivism significantly, which means we will reduce the number of violent crime victims that we have. Mississippi will be a safer place. We will have inmates getting out of prison and going directly to jobs that have been secured by probation and parole agents who are going to supervise them and drug test them and see that they work. They're going to have high skill and good paying jobs, not picking up paper jobs and not sweeping floor jobs, but jobs that can sustain their family and sustain them and can make them not want to come back to prison and not have to resort to violence and stealing. That's what corrections is all about, correcting deviant behavior, not lock and feed, torture, and torment. We've moved that direction. We're getting there, but we have to have adequate funding. Now, here's the problem. I was just at a meeting at ACA in Phoenix. I talked to the Commissioner of Corrections in Arkansas. He's running a bus from Greenville, Mississippi to Dermont County, Arkansas, and hauling correctional officers from Greenville to there. The reason he's doing that is he's paying $18.75 an hour. We're paying $15 an hour. We go to Tennessee, they're paying $20.19 an hour. You go to Alabama, they're paying $20 an hour. And you go to Mississippi, we're paying $15.38 an hour. We tried hard as we could, and we proved it with the vans out, recruiting videos, and so forth. We did not fill our positions. We are inadequately financed and funded for salaries. We need to have a salary of $18.50 an hour.
Quick question, does that include the $18 you're mentioning, does that include benefits?
It doesn't. If you add the benefits, you're hitting $50,000. People today, though, they want the check now. They want the $18.50 you get at Hobby Lobby. That's just what we find in our culture today. We had on our screen the benefits. We showed them the benefits, didn't make a big difference. Did hire 500, didn't keep them. And so that's the point, kept 200. Now, Kerry is going to tell us how much it costs the rest of the year.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, I think that's, so you hired 500, and so you had 300 attrition rate.
Right.
300 left. What was the reason for that?
The reason for that was simply this. We did not pay overtime to the new hires. The reason was our person is a mistake we made. Our personnel office didn't understand that you didn't have to bank the 480 hours of K time, so they didn't pay their overtime. They put the overtime into compensatory time, and therefore they didn't get the money. They desperately needed the money. But we changed it.
I think my question is the 300, why did they, I mean, I'll give you a for instance. When I hear in my area, Ingalls, and they hire 5,000 and they keep 2,500, it's because people can't pass a drug test and other stuff. So that's just what I'm asking is.
No, sir, I think it was absolutely pay. I think that we didn't give them enough money quick enough to keep them.
Okay, fair enough.
And so that's why we need to really work on the pay. I think 600, Kerry, how much money are we going to cost us to do that?
So if we raise them up to the level that the commissioner's talking about, it translates to about $592,582 a month for existing staff that we have right now.
$7 million.
About $7 million.
Per year.
What we have right now. Now, we're assuming that if we can get the pay up, then we'll hire more people, of course, and fill these vacancies, and then that number will go up, of course.
And see, we're spending the money anyway in overtime, which means the officers are not as productive, they're not as efficient, they burn out all the time, so we just really need to have the right number of people. Now, let's move on and look at Walnut Grove and Marshall. We took these on, and we used the pens we had for vacant pens and other prisons to have enough pens to start Walnut Grove and Marshall. They're both open and running. Walnut Grove's addiction program is working. It's got 32 inmates in it. There's 15 inmates that are the gang deal that's there. And we're set up for 32 people in the gang area. We'll go to 200 by July, at least in Walnut Grove. So this year, we're using any money we have from vacant pens to try to Band-Aid ourselves to have enough people to get to the end of the year. There's no way we know of to get more pay now, but it just means that July, we really need to raise this pay and limp along until July. Now, the reentry program is working well in that it is already operating. We spent the $6 million you gave us last year, and this year we're asking for $7 million because we need to build our churches and religious buildings because that's part of the gang abatement program. So we need those desperately. We're also asking to have exception from DFA for 2 years so that we can build buildings under 6,500 square feet, and this lets us use the inmate labor force to do that and save a lot of money here, and that would let us, because when we were starting the reentry program, we couldn't build the buildings to put the reentry equipment in because we wouldn't have the time to do it, so therefore it would help us if we could do that. So that's the reason we're asking for that. The other thing is the private prisons are going to come back at us and ask us for more money because we're paying more now than them. They're paying $13 and so an hour, which they're struggling to hire people. So a new contract's coming out for East Mississippi, and they're going to be trying to negotiate for higher pay. If we don't give them more money, then they'll quit, then we'll be taking it over, but we're taking it over at $15 an hour. So it's better to give them a little bit more and try to keep them on board for that. Now, medical is also an issue because we're paying our medical provider along with the contract we had before with Centurion, and so that is going up for next year, as you'll see in our budget. So anyway, we've increased probation parole, has released about 2,400 that will release this year from the new law, so that's going to reduce that population some, but then we're going to have to do more probation parole supervision. So we need to worry, we've asked for 20 new pens for probation parole.
Let me explore that because it's been a continuing thing. You know, I've asked a question about probation and parole. How is that? Have you gotten more probation and parole officers? Is this request that you just made, is that to go there? And so are we seeing more officers in that division?
We have. We filled up completely with probation and parole officers, which means we could hire them. We're back to 40 vacancies right now, which we let that slip, but we fill them back up as soon as we can, and we can hire the probation and parole officers at the salary we pay.
Okay.
Excuse me. And so we now today have a population of 16,800 inmates in our prisons. And actually, to be exact, 16,648 is the population count today. And so that talks about in our total request that we've asked for, and Kerry, you might want to tell him exactly how much we've asked for in our budget. He sees that.
So the standard request is 410, 352, 489.
Now,
you're asking, and LBR is 341, 740, 079.
That's right.
So you're asking for the LBR cuts to be restored?
We are.
Okay.
And here's the thing. MDOC has limped along and done what it could do, not been efficient, not done the things it should have done. And Governor Tate Reeves asked us to make the change, don't sustain, to change it. And in changing it, it costs money. And so that's what we're trying to do. We need the money this year. Next year, maybe not. It'll be less, but this year we have to ramp up. Our facilities are worn out. We have maintenance problems, kazoo, and we're doing a lot of the maintenance ourselves. For instance, the air conditioners at Marshall are on the roof and heaters, $1 million in those had deteriorated. We had to replace all of them. We did that with inmate labor. So we're using inmate labor everywhere we can to save money. So anyway, that's our request. That's what we asked for, and that's where we are. We're moving forward, doing good.
Thank you, Commissioner. Couple questions, and then I'll turn it over. So, one, how are the TVCs working, or are they working? Technical Violation Centers.
They're working okay, but we're about to renew the contract with those, but they're there, they're doing their thing, and we're really focusing more on reentry by having the inmates that are going to be released being at the prisons where we have the schools and the vocational programs. But they're there, we're working at the Technical Violation Centers, and so that's all good. It's working.
Okay, good. And then I have a question, and your office helped me out because I got a request from a local, and I think this is a statewide issue, is about the cars at drug court. So I don't know if you are familiar with my specific thing, but one of our circuit judges impressed upon me how beneficial it is that the vehicle that is used by the drug court staffer investigator is provided by Department of Corrections. And then apparently there was a policy due to the vehicles. And so what I understand is that it's been, in that particular case, I guess it was resolved, but y'all are looking at vehicles being within the drug court program. Do you know what I'm talking about? Am I making any sense?
No, not really to me. I don't know. Okay. I know one thing.
That tends to be the case up here.
I think I know what you're asking, Mr. Chairman. So our fleet across the board is in really bad shape. As you can see, the request is pretty large. We haven't bought a lot of vehicles for the past couple of years, quite candidly, because we didn't have the money. So now we're asking for the money, probation and parole especially, and our request is a substantial number of vehicles, and it's the ones that meet the criteria for DFA that are 150,000 miles or 7 years old to replace those vehicles. And I think that's going to answer your question.
And I'm talking about Jackson County. Apparently, Department of Corrections via probation and parole assigned their person and the vehicle to drug court.
Right.
And then when this policy that you're talking about, I think there's a policy instituted to try to get a hold of these vehicles because of that, which then meant the vehicle was leaving the drug court. Okay. Point being is the circuit court and the drug court appreciated, and it allowed them to do their job.
Right.
But that's what is falling under this request that you're talking about.
Yes, sir. It's in the number that we asked for, and there's lots of vehicles that need to be replaced, and we've patched it and squoze in about all we can possibly do at this point. Not just those vehicles, other vehicles. We just hadn't bought much in the past few years because we just didn't, and we didn't have the money to do it. Now it's kind of to a critical point to where we're going to have to replace some vehicles.
Okay. Well, I think that's good. I would ask you to consider certainly in Jackson County, but I think it's other places, the relationship with the drug courts, because the drug courts, as we all know, keeps people from coming to y'all, and it returns money back to the taxpayers. Y'all would agree with that?
Sure.
Okay, so, and then I want to welcome Senator Hickman to the subcommittee. And before I turn it over to the committee, I wanted to say a couple things. I saw some press walk in. If the press didn't see the video that they played, and I don't know if, Mr. Chairman, you've seen the video, I would encourage people to see it about the workforce. I thought that was impressive because that's what we're trying to do. And my observation of that was there's an inmate in there that said, it gives me an opportunity to grow. And I think that's what we're trying to do.
That's it.
And I'm relying on my memory from being in the courtroom as an assistant DA, and those people are there, and they don't have, for whatever reason, the skills aren't there. And I've heard the saying, the best social program is a job, and job that they can fit. Would you agree with that?
It is, absolutely, because if you don't have a job, you can have all the religion, all the whatever, but if you can't pay your bills, you're prone to rob and steal. And the way we do to block recidivism is to give them meaningful, workful jobs. Now, here's the good news. We'll have, these first graduates are going to be the teachers, and we'll have 20 graduates with CCRs and ASC certification the 1st of March. We'll have 100 of them by July the 1st. Next year, 500. And that's why we need, this is our year to grow, and we'll have that many people. We look for 1,000 people in 2 years to leave our school with ASC certifications and NCCR. Now, here's the deal. We have to work with probation and parole to get the ones who are going to get out, to get them in school, taught by the ones who have long sentences, because we want to keep our teachers. And so therefore then, when you get out, then we'll work with probation and parole to have them a job secured and found, and the probation and parole agent be sure they get to that job, and that they go to that job and drug test them and see that they're working, but not to go and mess with them on the job. Let them be off the job and back at home when he talks to them. Let them work. And so I think that's the work program that we need to have, and that's when we'll see ourselves turn around and save you money and not need as much money in the budget request. This is the growing year. This is the year that counts.
Well, and I want to say, look, and I say this from the standpoint of I personally have not received any complaints or read anything about the gang situation. I know MDOC, until you came in, was under justifiable pressure. In the last 2 years or year and a half, I certainly have seen improvement. Judged by that video, that's why I encourage the press, who rightfully so tends to beat up on the Department of Corrections, but I'm seeing progress being made. And I think that's good, and that's, I think Governor Reeves and yourself should be commended for that. Because I know this, I haven't seen anything about the gang problems, and you certainly have gotten a hold of that based on the feedback that I've heard. So thank you for that. With that, I'll turn it over to the committee. Any questions? Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. A couple of questions. I'm sorry I came in late. I got stuck behind a traffic accident over on West Jackson on the way in, but I may have missed some of this, so forgive me if you've already explained it. But first, on number of inmates, I heard you say we got 16.6 or 16.8, I think was the number roughly.
16.6.
That seems like it's a lot lower. Yeah, and is it some of that due to the parole eligibility, or are there other reasons that our inmate count is going down?
I think I have to give it credit to the parole eligibility, basically, because we haven't quite turned our curve yet, and that's what we're trying to do now. We're there, but we haven't turned it with our reentry programs and so forth. We're ready to.
Okay. Yeah, and I would imagine some of it could be due a little bit to the slowing of prosecution due to the COVID issues, and the court systems are backed up a little bit, and that may have be some factor. I don't know.
Right.
We can. That's not as much your concern. Did I hear you say you're good on employees right now? Your employee situation is good as far as numbers?
I am. We're struggling really bad to have enough employees. And I mentioned, I think before you got here, that Arkansas is paying $18.75 an hour and going to Greenville, Mississippi and running a bus to Dermont, Arkansas with employees they're hiring in Greenville. I wish I were hauling them to Parchment from Greenville.
Well, Mr. Chairman, before you got here, they said that they had hired 500 and 200 stayed, 300 left. And then I asked a question, and their response was that was a result of the pay that was the hourly pay. Of course, then I asked about benefits, and the commissioner was upfront and saying people would rather have the check.
Yeah.
So that didn't, and then the surrounding states on an hourly basis are lesser than we are. Is that an accurate reflection of your, what you presented?
Lesser on benefits, but higher on upfront pay, maybe.
Right.
Well, our SEC Square program, which I did notice in your budget, that there have been some increases, proposed increases because of the SEC Square and getting to the minimum. I mean, that's the good thing about it. And for those that don't understand that, we shouldn't have, now it may not be median or max on employees, but we should be at a point where our salaries are at least competitive with other states. It may not be as good as a neighboring state, but when you compare all the states around us, we should be getting to that point. And I didn't mean to get into a discussion on SEC Square. My point on the employees is I want to make sure we're, in every agency, not just yours, that we're looking at the number of your needs, which is largely inmate-driven, I suppose, and then your number of employees for those inmates, and making sure that we've got the right number of employees for you to take care of the inmates. And maybe some of the problem is due to the locations. We talked about this last year. You know, one of your issues, it's harder to find the number of employees you need at Parchman, but it may be easier. You know, we can talk about Walnut Grove in a second, and I know we don't have a lot of time, and we can meet individually with Senator Wiggins and myself and y'all, but just making sure we've got the right number of people at the right places. That's what I want to help you do. And I don't know if your inmate, if that's still an issue, certain places you're okay, and certain places you're struggling. That's what I want to know.
We're doing that, and for instance, Parchman is down to 1,875. It's 64% understaffed. And so the point is, we can't hire them even at CMCF at the price we pay, at the amount we pay. And SMCI is the same because it's toward the coast. We just absolutely paying less, and the price we propose, or the salary proposed at $18.50, is less than our surrounding states, including Alabama, which is paying $18.75 now. So they're all up now. We can't go up possibly till July because we don't have enough in the money in the vacant pens, because we use the vacant pens to start Marshall, and we did have the money from the private, but it was inadequate, and also to start Walnut Grove. So the startup cost was expensive, so we don't have the cushion to raise it now. But we just hope and pray to get in the budget enough to be competitive at the $18 range.
Okay.
$7 million.
Yeah. And so I think to get the staffing levels where they need to be, according to the experts that we've hired to come in and tell us what the staffing levels need to be, we're about 877 short right now.
Indeed. Where are your pockets? Parchman's one of them, obviously.
Well, yeah,
it's
kind of everywhere.
Everywhere?
Right now. Yeah, it's
okay.
everywhere.
And then I know we don't have much time left, and one last thing I had made a note of was in here on the let me find my notes. Overtime pay. At one point, about the time you arrived, we had a real problem with that. Has that gotten correct? Have we gotten that balanced out some? I mean, we were having people that were really working some ridiculous hours on overtime. Has some of that gotten rectified, that problem gotten rectified?
We still have some double shifts, which it's impossible to work the 24 hours a day straight at SMCI. We still have some of that. We're not staffed adequately yet. We're working really hard there to get more people, and we subsidize it with probation and parole agents. When we have to, we're using some of those at Walnut Grove, 5 per shift, managing the gang people that we have there that are very violent. So we do have to reach over to probation and parole, which then hurts that agency a little bit with not having enough correctional officers.
Okay. Mr. Chair, at some point later in the session, maybe the 4 of us, or how many ever we need to, get together just to kind of drill a little bit deeper on some of these, see if we can address these problems that they may still have with employment and other. Some of these issues I think we will be addressing. I know we will be, but other ones we may need to go a little bit deeper. Thank you.
Well, and that, yes, certainly, obviously, but that's why I was focusing on that number, 500, and you have a, whatever the ratio is, 500 and 300 don't stay. So it's not like they're, so however we need to look at that. One other question. I noticed on your packet you have the response to the lawsuit by DOJ. So anything to add to what's on your packet?
One thing to add.
Oh, later. Okay. We'll address that later, so.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, they have it on there. On the facility side of it? Good. Tell me when I'll be there. Good gracious, I'm like drinking out. It's like, yeah.
It doesn't help. Like, this is my first time, so
When you got
finding
people,
out my practice has been difficult. Like, this is
oh yeah,
yeah. So I got a call yesterday. The judge wanted to talk to me at 9.
Hey.
That's why I was late.
we can talk. You got, the good thing is you got other attorneys who deal with that, including myself. So, and Briggs.
Hopefully, after this term, I'll be able to wind down a little better.
Here's the secret. There's a law that says any lawyer, legislator gets an automatic continuance on any case during the session. There's a law, yes.
I got to find that.
No, I'm dead serious.
No, I'm saying I really got to find
It
that.
says it shall be granted. So, I've got
Most of our judges are good. Like most
I know,
of our
but there's some.
But there's, yeah, you're right. There's some.
Kendall tried to amend it his first year. He and I signed on to make it even broader. But it does kind of, you get that, and I do a motion to continue to tax the statute.
I like to go over the top of things sometimes.
Like that, because it says shall. So, most of them, you're right, most know that you're in there. Really? But Briggs?
Well, how are you? She's busy with the kids. I'm sure will.
Okay. We'll start with the Department of Public Safety. It's always a pleasure to have the commissioner on the other side of the bench in the bar there, under where he can be questioned and determined how he's actually doing. So, Commissioner, it's all yours.
So there we go. I actually was going through some old messages from a year and a half ago, and I found one from Senator Chairman Hobson where the way I heard it, I think it said, whatever you need, just let me know and we'll make sure it gets funded. But maybe what he really said is, you better do everything right or you're not going to get anything. But it's all a matter of interpretation.
Was that when you were still on the Court of Appeals? And
that was the day the governor announced that
okay.
I was taking on this job. And a very lighthearted congratulations. Good morning, members of the subcommittee. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come before you and talk about some of our legislative ask on our budget, particularly our increases over last year. And we've got some handouts that we gave you. And if you look at the first page, you can see what the Requested increase for fiscal year 2023 is, and it's a rather large number when you look at it. I know it says 46 million. And so what I wanted to do is kind of talk through what constitutes that 46 million and let you know that the bulk of that is trying to get our salaries up, particularly when it comes to driver services, the crime lab, and our law enforcement officers at the Highway Patrol, MBN, MBI, and Capitol Police and CTED. What we're asking for right off the bat, if you go to the second page, you'll see a breakdown of Highway Patrol and the budget increase there. And really, of the general funds that we're asking for, there's a $9,743,000 increase, and that's about a $9,000 increase in salary for each trooper. And what we're trying to do with that is get to a $50,000 starting salary for state troopers and MBN agents. And right now, the starting salary in the statute's right around $39,000. If you add in what we receive or they receive through the Huggins Act, the 11-hour pay, they start off at around $42. And if we get that up to the $8,000, the starting salary will be right at $50. And I'll tell you why I think that number is important. And I've got some brochures from different police departments across the state. And one in particular just came out from Oxford recently. Non-certified officers, that means people that come on, they have not been certified law enforcement officers. They will have to go to an academy in order to continue to work in law enforcement. Starting salary in Oxford is $46,213, which is more than your state troopers and your MBN agents start off at now. That's for non-certified officers. Ours are certified. Certified officer salary starting at Oxford PD is up to $57,842. If you go to Olive Branch PD, uncertified officers are starting off at $55,000. If you go to the Hernando Police Department, starting pay for non-certified officers is $45,600. A starting pay for a certified officer is $50,160 up to $57,000. Gulfport PD, if you're transferring in as a certified officer, starting pay is $48,000. Tupelo PD, starting salary for certified officers up to $49,000. And so what we're asking for is the ability to start our troopers off and our MBN agents off at a salary that is...
Commissioner, can I interrupt you there? I don't deny those numbers, but there's also the Moss Point. I guarantee you they're not making that. My guess is in Loosedale Police Department, they're not making that.
That's true.
Is there like an average across the cities?
You know, I don't know what that average would be. We could certainly get you the number, but I think the reality is if we're trying to recruit the best and brightest to come into the state law enforcement ranks, then we should be paying one of the best salaries in the state. And when you look at what, we're obviously below Alabama, we're below Tennessee, we're below Louisiana on what they pay their state police. So we're trying to get that level up to where we're competing. And you know, and I'll point this out, starting salary now at Hobby Lobby is $37,000 a year. And you can get Sundays off and not get shot at on Friday. So, I mean, what are we competing with when we're trying to recruit folks into law enforcement to take on the challenges that it presents, particularly in today's world?
Look, I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying that I hear from these cities that you know, they're struggling for that as well. And I don't think that it's just because of how the cities are set up and stuff. But Moss Point, Loosedale, you know, Wiggins, I'm just thinking near us.
Absolutely. I mean, and look, some of those smaller cities are going to have that struggle. And the reality, though, and I think they've got to make a decision, just like you all have to make a decision. And really, in my mind, the core function of government has been from the very beginning. The reason why government was formed was public safety, to protect the common good of the people that it represented. And, a lot of other things have come along the way, education and Medicaid and things that government provide. But the real core function of government in the beginning has been public safety. And so, what we're trying to do, particularly on the state level, is pay these folks competitive salaries so that we can get the best and the brightest. Right now, we're doing a certified trooper school that's supposed to start in May. The deadline for applications is January 21st, so we're less than 10 days out. As of 2 days ago, we've had 10 applications come in. We're not paying as much as these other departments, so how am I going to recruit across the state when they know they don't have to come here? They can go work in Hernando. They can go work in Oxford. They can go work in Gulfport and make more money. So we're trying to recruit them into our ranks. We need to have an attractive salary to make that possible. And the reality is, with inflation that's been coming and those things, it puts us, in a good position to also combat those things. So we feel like it's important. I feel like it's important. It's really my major legislative ask for the years to try to get these folks. It doesn't affect me. I'm not in their pay scale. It affects them. And so that's why I feel it's important, and it's kind of why I've laid it all out on the line to try to get us there. And again, it's not for me. It's for the men and women that are out there doing it, and I feel like that 50 point is a really, really competitive and good starting point. So, and you see what it costs. For Highway Patrol, it'd be roughly $9,743,000. The other part of that, which is very small, our helicopter that we have now needs some maintenance and repairs, and that's about $180,000. We do have in the ARPA funds an ask that for 2 trooper schools that will get us up to 600 troopers over the next couple of years. If we can fund 2 schools out of that money, that would be approximately $7.3 million. And another major ask out of the ARPA funds is breathalyzers and toxilizers. A number of that equipment is fading out, particularly when you look at the toxilizer machines that we're using now. They're running out of their lifespan, and we need to upgrade those, and that's part of our ask at the crime lab as well, just to get new toxilizer machines across the whole state. Moving into Driver Services Bureau, there's a $1.4 million ask for increases in salaries. That's to bring everybody from the minimum to the market value. If we pay everybody at market value versus the minimum, that would be a $1.4 million increase. And part of that is, again, when we look at what we're competing with, trying to get folks to come in to work at our driver services station, you're competing with the Hobby Lobbies, you're competing with Wendy's. I think we did a salary survey, and the starting pay at Wendy's in Gluckstadt was $14-something an hour. So, we're trying to compete to get good folks in there, working those counters, dealing with customers, dealing with citizens to make sure that those folks have a good experience. And so, again, that's trying to get those salaries up to market instead of minimum. We have a driver service building in Cannon that we've done a lease agreement on. We also have the ability to purchase that building, but the first year lease is $1.2 million. We're going to be operating a call center out of that so that we can house more of our driver services folk to field the calls that come in from all over the state. Equipment and supplies for the driver services building would be about $1.7 million. And the big ask, which isn't out of general funds, but is out of the special funds, is $7.4 million, because we have to upgrade our driver services computer system, which does all the internal computing work when it comes to our driver's licenses. And that's due an upgrade, and it's a $7.4 million upgrade. Lastly, out of the ARPA money, we're asking for $8.6 million to acquire the building in Canton. It's a rather large building, and with the way we're busting at the seams right now, we just have to have the additional space to put the driver services folks, CTED folks, and other folks that really we had nowhere in our office to put them. Going on over into support services, the salaries, increase is $378,000. And part of that is the funding, I think for the 3% was only half. This is the other half of that. And that will cover the 3% increase. And then also with the addition of CTED and Capitol Police, we've asked for another $290,000 to cover the salaries of people to help answer the phones and take the additional calls that we're getting for CTED and our help desk system. Because we are seeing, with Capitol Police and CTED, a lot of additional internal support obligations that we're needing with support services. Moving on to the forensic lab. There, again, we're looking at a additional $5.2 million increase for salaries. Again, this is so that we can pay at market instead of the minimum. I can tell you, Senator Wiggins talking about Jackson County, your home, your sheriff down there has started a crime lab in Jackson County, his own crime lab, and took one of our employees and offered them about $10,000 more than we were paying in order to come down there and operate and be a part of his crime lab. So we're losing them to local crime labs, and we're losing them to private labs, our techs at the crime lab, because we can't keep up with the market salaries. They're getting paid at the minimum right now, plus the 3%. We've also got an ask. We've been using forensic pathologists on contract to help get rid of the backlog that we have in autopsy reports. One of the things that we've uncovered is there are actually autopsy reports from 2011 that have not been completed. And so we've been hiring those out to doctors in Texas, Tennessee, Arkansas, and West Virginia, trying to help eliminate that backlog. The contract pathologist to help on that is $1.8 million. In the ARPA funds, one of the things that we're asking for is $3.3 million to do a build out for a medical examiner's office in North Mississippi. We've been looking at various locations, but particularly the old hospital in Oxford seems to be a central location. That building is now owned by the University of Mississippi, and they do have some space they're willing to provide us at a very decent rent that we could actually put an ME in North Mississippi. Another ask that we have in the ARPA money is some various equipment. We need to upgrade some of the x-ray machines and other things for the crime lab and the ME's office, and that's another $1.2 million. Again, that's not out of the general budget, but ARPA funding. The next page, if you go over to Melota, the Law Enforcement Officers Training Academy, really not much other than the 3% increase for the SEC squared positions, $4,540. But out of the ARPA funds, we're looking to build and remodel the dormitories and defensive tactics facilities. We feel like that could be a very transformative project. I know one of the things that y'all are wanting to do with the ARPA money is find things that are transformative in nature that the state of Mississippi could rely on for generations to come as facilities that would help future generations. With the emphasis that we're wanting to put on law enforcement training, particularly when it comes to new ways of training and better facilities, we feel like that could be that type of project. I mean, the Law Enforcement Officers Training Academy is the state of Mississippi's academy, and there's academies across the state operated by local sheriffs and police chiefs that they have put together. But the state one, again, ought to be one of the best ones. And right now, if you go out there and do a tour, you'll see cracks in the walls that you can actually look through, leaks in the building and mold and issues of that nature. And it's really in need of a desperate upgrade out there. As we roll over into MBI, again, for the increase in salary that we talked about with MHP, that would be an additional $1.6 million. Plus, we've asked for some money for the annual maintenance on license plate readers that we utilize and maintain. That's $150,000. At the Office of the Capitol Police, we've asked for additional funds for salaries of $1.2 million. Of course, we're trying to get those numbers up so that we can sufficiently monitor and patrol the Capital District. I was proud to see that both sides of the chambers and the legislature, as well as the governor, have been very supportive of those efforts to add additional employees. We also need to get their salaries up to a much more competitive nature if we're going to convince them to come into the Capital District and work. We've also asked for 2 IT positions, an HR, 2 dispatchers, and an office of admin. A lot of that's related to the additional responsibilities we've had to take on, not just the police function. Just so y'all know, we're responsible for doing the badges now, monitoring the cameras, and things that go beyond just the police force. So, you know, we need some helps in that area. We'd like to do a capital threat assessment and training for those that actually monitor the Capitol, the estimated costs on doing that threat assessment so that we can do an active shooter training and bomb threats and things of that nature is $300,000. And then we're also asking for another $1 million in ARPA funds for installing license plate readers throughout the entire district. We could work, and we've been in discussion with JPD to work together on that so that we would both have access to that information as we try to develop a plan to help solve some of the crime problems in the city of Jackson. Bureau of Narcotics, that's another $6.8 million in salary increases. That's the increase up to $9,000, but also adding, as our goal is, an additional 50 MBN agents across the state. I go back to looking at the number of overdose deaths that we're having in this state compared to what we did 15 years ago. It's risen significantly. At the same time, the number of MBN agents from 2007 and now has dropped from almost 150 down to, I think we stand at 90 right now. So we're trying to get those numbers back up so that we can do a better job of facilitating local task force and combat the overdose problems that we're seeing with fentanyl and other drugs across the state. They're also asking for $243,000 to help with support operations, travel, contractual services, commodities, equipment, as well as another $1 million for vehicle for new agents and replacement of 25 vehicles. Public Safety and Planning, which is primarily one of our grant agencies, helps oversees grants and federal money that comes in for highway safety. It's a 3% increase, which is $10,000, which covers the SEC square.
Just for, we got like a minute and a half, because we got to go in, or 2 minutes. We go in at 10.
Okay.
So
let me do one more, and I just want to talk about Homeland Security then. Increase in salaries there, $7.5 million. We're really trying to beef up Homeland Security and set up a cybersecurity division. That's been very high on the Lieutenant Governor's list of priorities, is try to get the cybersecurity division going. And so that ask is for that particular division and trying to get it to stand on its feet. So I'll be glad to answer any questions. I know we've taken up a lot of time, but there are, I think, 11 or 13 divisions we have under our belt, so it covers a lot of different areas.
I'm good, and we'll get together through as the session goes on. Any questions from any member? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you.
it. We'll get together.
Do we have those?
Thank you. I'm fine. If you want to, this week, get past Monday's deadline.